Hi, welcome to TLC's Creative Art Corner. I'm Miss Susan and I hope you've had a very blessed week. This week we're going to continue from last week where we did watercolor with natural ingredients. And this week we're going to take it a little step further and just use food color as well as some of the natural ingredients. And you can see how to make those on the link that will be at the end of the video. So this was last week and we used all the natural ingredients, vegetables and spices, and we made this chart. Okay, all right. And then this week when I was doing my practices, I made another chart, and these are the food colors and the recipes I used so I could keep track of what was best. Okay, so we have the food dyes up here, the yellow, green, blue, red. I was able to make a brown, and then here were some of the beet, turmeric, chili, paprika, tea and coffee. These were the red cabbages. So the same recipe, just refer to the last week's video how to do those. And then this was the food color I picked up of saffron, which is a brilliant, brilliant orange, so it's really quite nice. And yeah, so that's what we're going to go for today. And then this is some of the possibilities that can be done with this kind of materials. Okay, this painting was done with the flour and salt recipe. I used some my finger a lot, and I used the brush, and I also used earbuds to get the red flowers on, or apples or cherries, whichever you prefer. Okay, so this is one thing you can do, is some kind of scene, painting, animal, whatever. Okay, and then I decided that pouring is the big thing of the moment, so I decided I wanted to see how we could do what could be done with pouring. Now, I put this on aluminum foil, and I'll explain that in a minute when we get to the materials. But this one I sort of did a palette knife, or you could use a knife, okay? Yeah, there's many things to do this, so that's one option. And I used the glue, and I also used this recipe, because I have the sparkles here from the salt. I can see the salt. This was another one, a pour. Okay, and this is just on a piece of cardboard I had, the back of a notebook or something, so if you don't have paper, don't worry. Okay, so this was a nice thing. This was done with this one, and you can see all the sparkle, but it is very textury and sparkly, so that's one. And then this I tried on aluminum foil, again with this recipe, and I'm a little bit concerned that it could flake off over time, because it's not the glue. Usually use aluminum foil with the glue. But anyway, I tried to do marbling. I was just playing with this, so it's really no design per se, And then this one I put on really messy, and then I brought it down like this and let it drip. And this is the glue one. But I had blue in there and it got lost. And that's the thing with pouring, when you pour colors on top of each other and do puddles and whatnot. You lose some stuff, you have to, well, that's how it is. Okay, and then today, this is where we're going to go with this. This is going to be with the glue painting and a sponge. Okay, and this is going to be Caleb, the caterpillar. Okay, so I already did the design on it, and I did my background first, which I did with a sponge, and we'll talk about that later. Okay, now I'll tell you all about the materials. Okay, first of all, it's always protective wear, the table and the clothing. Okay, now the materials you will need for this, again, we have the acrylic pad, or we have watercolor paper. Now, if you're going to use watercolor paper, this is a nice one. It's 300 grams. The other one that I have in my spiral there was 200 grams. But the good thing is, what you need to be looking for is that the paper has a texture to it. I have a watercolor paper at home that's smooth on both sides. That is not good because it does not absorb the water. That's a whole different technique with watercolor. So be sure your paper has texture to it. The same with the acrylic pad. It will have a slight texture to it and it absorbs the paints. But you can just get one pad and it works for both. This will take acrylic and water, and this will take acrylic and water. And then again, you can cut them down to other sizes if you want to make it more economical for you. So you will need paper. Another option, for the glue especially, is to use aluminum foil. And here I just put them on the back of a foam board. Here's a foam board that I had in the house. Cut them out to different sizes, okay, and just covered it with aluminum foil. So you could use that. The shiny side should be up, and then you will need some tape to tape it down in the back. Okay, this one I wrinkled up first to see what it might do. Okay, and I taped it on the back. So we have those options. You will need something to mix your paint in. So again, like last week, we used the ice cube tray. or we can try maybe something like an egg container. Okay, if not, or if you have containers, you could also use like yogurt containers and then put saran wrap on top of them when you're finished playing with them. Okay, now you also need a bowl to mix everything in, and usually you make a big recipe, so you would have a bigger bowl, but this, this will have to do for right now. Okay, and you will need some colors. You will need some measuring things, measuring spoons. You will need water. This whisk thing is quite nice to use. Okay, I have earbuds for the painting, and I have some sponges to do the painting with. What I did, I cut up a sponge in little ones so that you could have one for each color, although I only have 4. Okay, some things to stir with. I always stir with this end. Okay, I have a palette knife, but if you don't have one, you could use a spatula, you could use the back of the spoon, you could use a fork, measuring spoons, I probably mentioned that, a brush, but it's not necessary. Do not use the watercolor brush from last week because this stuff has got glue in it, or this, and it's going to ruin the brush, so keep that brush separate. Okay, so with the food colors, I have the eyedropper or pipettes. Okay, and this is what I use to make the white paint. I took off the top and then I squeezed that in to make white, or you could just leave it. And then I'm using this spice this time that I didn't have. It's upside down, saffron color. I didn't have it last time. Okay, that's all the stuff there. And over here, you will need glue, white glue. Any white glue will do, washable school glue. Some glues are thicker than others. I like this one myself. Okay, you will need talc or powder, although flour will work as well. I've done this one with flour. And you'll need a container and you'll need water. Okay, so glue, talc, and water. Okay, so we got all that. Now, I hope we have everything. Okay, well, ideally you would have a cutting board to work on, but I forgot mine today, so we're not having that. So just use the table. Now, when we're going to paint our painting, especially with watercolors and acrylic, if you're using paper rather than a canvas, it's good to have if not, just you could probably tape it down on this, to tape it down and try to give it a border, even border all the way around. See, I painted my background and then I thought, I got to tape this down so it doesn't curl up. So that's what we'll do. Okay, so those are the materials. So go get your materials. I'll be writing here. Press pause. We're going to start with the glue recipe. What you need here is a 1-to-1 ratio. So it could be 1 tablespoon to 1 tablespoon. It could be a half a cup, cup. Because if you're going to make a lot of paint, you might as well make a big batch and then separate them out. And that's what I would do. But just for demonstration's sake, we're just going to make one color. So this is going to be 1 tablespoon. This is 1 tablespoon of the talcum powder that I put in here already. And now I'm going to do the glue. Okay. Glue, get it in there. Okay, and then you're going to add some water. Now I'm a little bit leery to add a whole tablespoon of water because I don't want this liquidy. You can control how liquidy you want this one. Okay, now I always like to stir with the back of this. Okay. So I start to mix this in first. Okay, and it's going to be like this. And then I put my water in one of these containers that like ketchup comes in or something so that I can just squirt it in a little bit at a time. And it's quite nice to do. So if you do a lot of crafts, it's a nice thing to have for that. You want to get it smooth. So this comes out nice and smooth. Okay, it's a little thick still, but I will add a little bit more because I like it. If you were going to do a pour, you want it to be like warm honey, I guess, or a syrupy kind of thing, rather than liquidy paint. Yeah, see, this has got a nice texture. Okay. All right, so this is one mixture. Okay, so I'm going to set this mixture aside, and we'll do that mixture, and then we'll do the colors at the same time. Okay, now this one is 2-to-1. It's two parts flour to 1 part salt. There was one recipe I tried that was 2 and 2, but it was terrible. And I tried cornstarch, and even that was a nightmare. So no, I would suggest staying with flour. Now, you could also use flour over on this one instead of the talcum powder, and that works just fine, flour and glue. So here I mixed this together already. Okay, I'm just going to mix the two, blend the flour and the salt. Okay, now this was 2 tablespoons to 1 tablespoon, so I'm going to go ahead and start with 1 tablespoon of water. This one's a little tricky. I thought it was a little tricky anyway. So put that in there. Most fantastic thing. It's best not to add too much water and get it too liquidy, because then it's really hard to fix again. You have to keep adding flour. The salt doesn't really dissolve, in my experience here. The salt is not dissolving, but that gives it a nice texture. If you were using a big bowl and a big thing, you could whip it with this, you know, and get it in there, but this is too little to use that. So, but if you were, say, you had a bigger bowl, you could really get the lumps out. You want to try to get as much of the lumps out as possible. Yeah, so still, see, it's still. I have these smaller containers, and I want to show you how to make 2 colors. So I'm going to divide, from this one, I'm going to divide this into the 2 containers. And I want to show you how to make a brown, okay, and then a darker green. Okay, and then we'll make a purple with that one because I haven't got purple in there. So we'll divide these up. All right, I separated these into smaller cups that I have because I want to show you how to make a brown and how to make in a darker green. Okay, when I have my food colors here. Now here's how to make a brown. Let me move that one out of the way. Okay, you're going to start with green, more green. Okay, well, not more green, but start with green. Actually, it's more red than green. Okay, but you can start out with even. Okay, now hopefully this will work. Let me get this on here. Okay, because brown has a reddish undertone to it. Now you may have to end up adding more talc because it's a liquid that you've added to it and making it more liquidy. But as it sits, as the glue sits, it will settle more, and you have to get it off scrape it off the sides and really get it in there. Okay, so here we'll do a little sample here, just see. Okay, so that's prettier. It's a reddish brown, but if you wanted it to be a little bit darker brown, you'd add just a few drops of blue, a little at a time. Okay, and keep adding it in. And you can see it's a darker brown. You can see, I don't know if you can see that very well, but we'll put it up here. But you gotta, okay, there's the darker brown. Okay. But you've got to get it mixed in. There's some green there that shows, but that's okay. Okay, so it's kind of, it will dry quickly because it's glue. Okay. All right, so that's how you make the brown. Okay, start with green, a little bit more red than green, and then a dot of blue. Okay. Now I want to show you how to make a darker green, because the green food color usually comes out this color, or even lighter. So if you want like a tree, you want a darker green, like I did here. Okay, here's a slightly darker. It helps. You're never going to get the best, but with, you know, besides buying paint. Okay, you're going to start with green. Okay, start with your green. Let's see. Okay, did I clean that? Yes. Okay. Let me use this end. See, this is the green food color you get. It's more of a chartreusey color. Okay. Okay, see. Which is nice for some leaves, you know, but then there's a dark side of the leaf, the shadow. Okay. So you add a little bit of the opposite, and the opposite of green is actually orange, but you could add just a little drop of red. And that will help darken it, 2 drops. Okay. Okay, I'm going to have to add more green because this came out kind of brown. But, you know, in the shade, some of the greens do turn to a brownish color. Yeah, there we go. So this would be a dark green. See? You could probably even add some brown into it to get more shadow. So can you see that? So these are the different greens. So that's how you can make a darker green. Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm going to set these aside. This is the glue side, and this is the flower side. I don't have a purple over here, so I'm going to try to make a purple. I've never been really happy with food color in purple, but we can sort of try. Okay, so I'm going to try with the blue. And with the blue, you get a very light blue, but the more blue you add, you could get it slightly darker, or you could add a tinge of red and you'll get a darker blue. Here's your blue color. So you could, this one has, oh, the salt, you can feel the salt in it. It's kind of fun to do finger painting with. Okay, and just, because it's kind of liquid, you're going to get it all over your fingers. Okay, so I would just add 1 drop at a time of the red. Now to make white, you could probably just leave it, or you can add the corrector fluid. I added corrector fluid, but it doesn't always mix in really, really well. So here we have, it's getting there. But that's really not a purpley color, it's more of a gray. But let's try more red. A lot of this is just hit and miss. For me anyway, it's hit and miss. Yeah, see this. The problem with one of these colors, if there's a yellow in it, there's probably a yellow in here, so that's what's making it to a brownish color. Okay. When you have warm colors and cool colors mixed, that's a whole color theory thing, So here's a darker purple. Yeah, but it looks like a brown. Yeah. So it might have been better to start with the red and then go to the blue. But anyway, but it looks kind of purpley. It's a dark purple, so we'll just go with that. Okay. I don't know if I can, let me, just for fun, I'm going to see if I can add this and lighten it up. Okay. Just for fun. See, it doesn't mix in that well, the corrector fluid, but I couldn't. Nail polish would probably work too if you had white nail polish, which I don't have. Well, this is giving it an interesting texture, that's for sure, so it doesn't really mix in well. But anyway, the texture's okay. Okay, so yeah, it changed it a little bit. But, okay. All right. So that's a purple. Okay, probably the best you're going to do. But I did purple over here, and it was okay. So I must have started with red and added a drop of blue. Okay, so now we're ready to paint. So this is the first brown we made with red and green, and then we added more. And then we added some blue, just a couple dots of blue, and we got the darker brown. And then to the green, we added a touch of red to get it to be darker, and then I added some of that in there as well. And so that gives a nice, that's the best you're going to get with the food colors, But, again, it might change between brands. I have no idea. That's what's available here. Okay, and then I tried just the blue paint by itself, and I tried to add some red to make purple, and this is the progression. You might want to start with red first and then add 1 drop of blue to get more of a pastel, which is what I believe I must have done with this one here. Okay, so it's a little more lilac-y color. Okay, not so vibrant. Now we're ready to paint. Now here, I just want to show you the technique. Here's a brush, so you can use the brush. Now these paints have been sitting, since I made them yesterday, so I had to stir them to be sure it's all mixed up, and you should do that every time. Now these are supposed to be able to be stored in the refrigerator. I don't know how long they keep, but anyway, so here's the painting it. This is the glue recipe. Okay, yeah, okay, so that's nice. Okay, another technique you can use is with the sponge, which is what I did on the thing. See, for example, here's a sponge, just dip it. Get the sponge a little bit wet. Not dripping wet, but you can do a nice wash like this, especially from the background, which I will show you in a second. Okay. All right, so these are different techniques you can take, or you can clean this. Okay, okay, maybe stipple. Okay, that's a lot there. Okay, okay. you were doing a tree, you might want to do that for around the tree. So there's lots of techniques you can use for this kind of art. So here we go. I'm going to paint this upside down so you can see. Okay. Now I've already did the background with a wash with the sponge, but I want to put a little bit more sky. So the sky is a little darker in places. It's okay that we've gone over it. Okay, it'll dry. Okay, it dries. Okay, now we're going to start with the face. I'm going to go ahead and use the brush, and then you always have to clean it off with the towel here. Okay. And these are the colors I'm going to use. I'm going to start with a red, a blue, purple, green, yellow, and an orange tail. Okay. And then we'll do the tree. So I already put my smiley on with the Sharpie, but you can go over it again at the end. Okay. Now I already put a blue behind here, so that's going to affect the color somewhat. Okay. And if I want it darker, you just do a second layer in places to give it a little bit more texture. Okay. Okay, so there's the red. So I'll try to go through this quickly. Of course, you at home would do it much better. Okay, I would want to layer this or add more food color here so that I get a darker blue. But I know it's the body because, you know, it's part of the caterpillar. It's part of Caleb here. Purple. I made this purple at home yesterday. See, it's a little lilac-y. See how it comes. Oh, it's nice. Okay. And again, after it dries, you can go over it a second time if you want. And we have this green. And you can, you know, your caterpillar doesn't have, you don't have to do a caterpillar, but your caterpillar can be up of the inchworm or however you want to do it, give it a different personality. So you can see this, okay. Now I'm going to go with the tree. I made this brown. I have to stir it. You know, it falls to the bottom. Everything settles. So most paints you have to do that with anyway. I am pleased with how these paints are working. Okay. And here you could do different shades of green and even add a yellow to it or something too. Okay. And then we'll add the leaves at the end. Okay, now you could also have used the sponge. I think I will try that with the leaves. Now it's a little bit wet in places, but usually you would let it dry a little bit before you do the leaves. Okay, I'm going to do some leaves that just fall down from the top here. You don't want too much water. I mean, you don't want any. You just want the sponge to be damp. These are like leaves that hang down from a branch that you don't see. Okay, and then we'll put some down here. Okay, and then you want it maybe a darker color of green. Since we made it, let's put a shadow on it. You could also do it with your finger. You know, you could. You know, my finger's a little bit wet. You know. Okay, so there we have. Okay. So, and then when it dries, you would peel the paper off, and you would have a border. Okay, so that's the one with the glue. Now we'll try something with the water and salt paints. Now I didn't tie this one down or tape this one down. It's just in the book. This is the watercolor paper, so I'll see what it happens. Okay, so I'm going to do a tree as well, and I'll start with my tree. Okay, I'm just going to eyeball it. You know, the trees are darker down, bigger down here. And they come up and have branches. This is a reddish, kind of a red-brown. Okay. I'm just eyeballing this, but you could do a, okay, I'm going to do my my grass down here. So you can scruff it on, give it some texture here. So I could have started with my background blue. We'll try it. Yeah, I need to clean. Now usually the sky is darkest up at the top and then comes down. Do some of my leaves. I'm going to go ahead and use my bundle. Okay. Okay, we can over here. And then maybe you want to add some, I'm going to add red, like apples or something. And these are probably thick enough where you could use your finger. Oops. So for a quick painting, okay, there you have it. Maybe this is a lake behind and it's on the lake. Okay, so that's this week's project. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a little bit lengthy, but I wanted to give you different techniques of what you can do with the different materials. Now you don't have to do all glue or you don't have to do all the flour. You use what you have in the house. That's the best thing to use, so you don't have to get into expenses. Anyway, I showed you different options of materials to paint on. Okay, so this was the first one we did, which was on watercolor paper, and we taped it down so that we had a little bit of a border. And then I added more to it in the tree to give it a little bit more texture. Okay, and then we did, this was with the glue, and this one, this one was with the flour and salt recipe, okay, and then we did finger painting and things like that on it. And you can do anything. It doesn't have to be a tree. It can be any design that you want. It's up to you. You're the artist, okay? And then we did some pouring techniques. Okay, this was on aluminum foil, so this was with the glue. And then this was another one we did, and we did marbling with this one. So many ways to go and many colors. You can make your own colors up, or you can try the ones with the spices from last week. Okay, so I really like looking at your projects, so I really, please send them in, show us what you want. And if there's something that you would like to learn to do or something you want further information on, please email me at Susan Daniels, maebeat@yahoo.com, and it'll be on the screen there. And then send us your work to the website, wetransfer.com, and then the administrator at tlckuwait.com. And the address will be there on the screen, as well as a link to last week to know how to make this using the spices and vegetables. Okay, all right. So I'm happy that you came to visit us today, and I hope to see you next week. Have a blessed week.